Hi friends, welcome back to my quilt room. And if you're new here, I'm so glad you stopped by. Today I'm going to show you how to make a hidden wells block. And this is the block here, and it's made with strips. Now I'm using a jelly roll, and so I'm using 2.5-inch strips. The hidden wells came out around 1987, I believe it was published. So it's a fairly newer block as opposed to your log cabin and your traditional blocks that came out in the 1800s. So I'm going to show you how to construct this block. I'm going to show you how to put it together in your Quilt As You Go sandwich and sash a couple blocks together. And at the very end, I'm going to show you some variations on using the strips for this block. So I hope you'll stay with me. Let's get started. Okay, so today for our project, we're going to be using this jelly roll, and it's from Tiny Spool and Company, and it's the cottage core. And I got this off of Amazon. And I think it's a really nice fabric. Let me open this up real quick and show you. And it's not really that bad of a quality. It's pretty soft. And I'll just cut this. Okay, so I think it's a beautiful set too. I love the colors in this. So let me just fan this out so you can see. Got some beautiful colors in here. So today's project is going to be the Hidden Wells block, and we're going to use these 2.5-inch strips, and we're going to put together 4 in a row. Now, what I'm going to do is, just to make this a little easier and more manageable, I'm going to cut these in half instead of making really long strips. And also this way you're not really committed to using the same 4 fabrics. Like I could use this with, 3 other different fabrics, use this one with 3 other different fabrics. So it gives you a little more versatility. So I'm just going to pick a few different fabrics to go with this. Again, cutting them in half. And I think one of these. Okay. And I'll do this color. And I'll be honest, this is not really a bad quality of fabric. It's and it's also very affordable. And I'll put the link down below in case you're interested. So what we want to do now is we want to sew these all together, and then I'll show you how to cut them up. Okay, so now we have our 4 strips sewn down, and what I'm going to do first is to, and I also ironed my seam allowances. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off that selvage. I'll just line this up. Take that selvage off. Okay, and now we should get 8.5 squares out of this. So I'm going to cut this down to an 8.5-inch square. And we need 2 of them to make our block. Okay, that's 1. Oops. Oh my. Someone needs a new blade. Okay. I think I just need to trim a little bit off this edge to make it even. Yeah, right here. Okay. just a tiny bit. All right, so now we have 2 squares, and this we can definitely use for something else. So should be no waste to this. What we want to do now is take one of our blocks, turn it, and lay it right sides together. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew all 4 sides, so all the way around. So just line them up and then sew all the way around all 4 sides. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have this square all sewn on all 4 sides. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler. Let me get a longer ruler. And what we want to do is we want to cut our fabric on the diagonal, corner to corner. So I'm going to cut this side, and without moving it, we're going to go to the next diagonal, corner to corner. Okay, now we have these 4 triangles, but if we open them up, we have our 4 squares. So this is what they all look like. And I'm going to iron the seams on this. And this one got cut right there on the corner. Now you'll have these little bunny ears. You can just trim them off. Okay, so now we have these 4 blocks. And now we're going to put these together. So what you can do is play around with the placement. I'm just going to cut these off. Okay. So now we're going to take our 4 blocks and we're just going to play around with the placement. So what you could do is you could take a small square, put that in the center. There you go. You could do it like this, the opposite, which looks cute. You could also put that on the outside. And then it makes like this X or these V's here. That's pretty neat. Or you could take these and do the opposite, like that. And this kind of makes like an X with the opposite fabric. Of course, these would be sewn together, but like that. And then this kind of like scrappy square in the center, whatever you see. Everybody sees something different. So I think what I'm going to do is a tough one. So this is where you just got to play with it. So I think what I'm going to do is do this one. I really like that. So now what you want to do is you want to take your squares and you want to fold them and fold them over and sew them like a 4-patch. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on this one and this one. And I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have those 2 sewn down and I just chain piece them together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron my seams, but now I'm going to iron them the opposite way because we're going to nest these. And also, what I forgot to mention earlier is when you do sew these two together, there are like a couple seams that you will have to match up here. So now I'm going to iron those seams. All right, so this one is going that way, so this one I want to go that way. Okay, so this is what we have now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, fold it over, and I'm going to sew that straight down. And I'll be right back. Okay, so we have that all sewn down. And look how cute that is. I love this pattern here. So let me just iron my seam. Okay, so there we have it. Now we're going to trim this down. Now for beginners, let me just say this. Everybody's seam is different. And I know that sounds kind of crazy because we're supposed to sew at 1/4 of an inch. That's the standard. But some people sew at a scant 1/4 inch. Some people sew at an exact 1/4 inch. Sometimes I turn my machine on, my needle lands in the middle, I put my 1/4 inch foot on, and I sew. And believe it or not, my machine, even with that 1/4 inch foot on there and my needle in the middle, it is more than a 1/4 inch. Whatever you do, you just have to be consistent. So pick a seam allowance and stick with it throughout your quilt. So given that, my block, I'm going to measure to see what it is. And mine is about 10 3/4. I have a little less up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this down to a 10 1/2. So how I do that is I pick 10 1/2 plus about 1/8. And I put that on my bottom line. So I have a 10 1/2 and another 1/8. And I line that up on the bottom. And then I want to do the same on this side. So what I do is I just slide my ruler back and forth, leaving it on that exact 10 1/2 and 1/4. I mean 10 1/2 and 1/8. And I'll line this up at 10 1/2 and 1/8. Hopefully that makes sense. And just get it, I mean, it's not going to come out exact because it's not really trimmed up yet. So that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to trim that to that measurement on these two sides. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top right, I'm going to flip it, get some of this fuzz out of here, flip it to the bottom left. And now I'm going to take my 10 1/2 and I'm going to line that up exactly on these two because I know these are now straight. And now I have a perfect 10 1/2 inch block. And doing it that way, you're not cutting down one side shorter than the other side, and same by top and bottom. So your blocks are going to stay symmetrical all the way around, if that makes sense. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to put this in the Quilt As You Go sandwich. So I'm going to grab my backing and my batting, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my batting and my backing cut at 10 1/2 inches. And the way I quilted this was I took my backing, laid that face down, took my batting, put that on top, and then my top face up. Now, if you want to hold these layers together, you can put some basting spray, or you can just pin them. I like to put a little bit of spray just to hold it. Now, what I also found with this when sewing this together, that this center point here had so many seams coming into it that it was a little lumpy. So what I did was I just opened my intersecting seams in the middle and the sides. I pressed them open. So this way it took some of the bulk out of there. So you can try it out both ways. You can just press them to the side and see how that is for you, or you can press them open and just to alleviate some of that bulk. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to stitch in the ditch straight down the center, across the middle, and then I'm going to sew a diagonal here. And I'm going to do that stitch in the, again, stitch in the ditch, and then I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. Okay, so now I have it all stitched down. And again, I just did like down the center, across the middle, and then a diagonal. So now that's all stitched down. So now what we want to do is, I have a few blocks here. We want to join these. And what I'm going to do is, for this particular one, I'm going to use Sashing. So let me grab that, and then I'll show you how we're going to put these together. Okay, so I have my sashing. Now I'm just using a kind of a neutral color because I felt like the sashing that was the same as my backing was kind of a little busy, and it kind of distracted. So I'm using a neutral sashing, and what I have here is a 1-inch strip, which I'm going to put on the back, and then a 2-inch strip that I'm going to take and fold in half and iron for the front. So let me just do that real quick. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our back sashing and we are going to put it right sides together with our back. So that looks like this. And then we're going to take our front sashing, and with the raw edges, we're going to put that on the, match that up with the raw edge of our block, like that. So now we're going to clip this. You can pin it, whichever you prefer. And I'm going to sew this whole thing 1/4 of an inch all the way down. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back to show you the next step. Okay, so now we have that sewn down. We have the front and the back, and I'm just going to trim this off. And I like to overcut just to make sure that I have enough coverage in case something shifts when I sew it. So you can do, you can cut it exactly where you can give yourself a little room. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take that back sashing, we're going to pull that forward, and I'm just going to iron it forward a little bit. And we're going to take our second block, and we're going to take that back sashing, and we're going to line that up with right sides together. And you're going to pin or clip or pin that. And then you're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have that sewn down, 1/4 inch all the way down. We're going to open this up, and I'm just going to press that to make sure this lays flat. And as you can see, the blocks meet right in the middle. So I'm just going to press that real quick. And then this is what the back looks like. And then I'm going to take now this top piece and I'm going to flip that over so that it covers that seam. And I'm going to iron that down real quick. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to sort of top stitch this. You only need about 1/8 of an inch to hold that down. And you can clip this, you can pin it. I'm just going to clip the top and the bottom for right now. And then I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm just going to sew that top stitch right here. And I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have our 2 blocks sewn down together. And here's the top stitch right here. And then this is the back. And now what you want to do is you want to continue with your blocks. And always remember that with Quilt As You Go, you are only sewing on the right-hand side and everything else builds to the left. So you always want to do your first block and attach your second and so on and so forth. And then for your rows, you're going to take your same sashing. You want to do 1 inch for the back and a 2-inch folded in half for the front, and you're going to build the rows the same way. Now I have other videos that show that whole process, and I will link some below, and at the end of this video you can watch one. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and here is our finished blocks. This is the one that we made. It's the 8.5, and we sashed it together with another block. This is the front sashing and then the back. And these are 2 more blocks that I don't have any sashing on. I just wanted you to see that when you put them together, what they could look like. So you could always go to my videos where I have no sashing. There's one no sashing on the front, and then there's one that I just put out with no sashing at all. And then these blocks over here, we did 4 strips. This one I did 5 strips. And again, you can do as many strips as you want, but this is how big it makes it. It's considerably sizable. And I also changed the orientation in this. This one comes to about 13.5 inches. And so just based on how I changed these blocks here, it made it a totally different look. So this has like a diamond in the center and then diamonds sort of a diamond pattern all around it. And then you have your strips on the sides. Now this one is pretty much the same size, but this one I did 7 strips, and I did 1.5 and 2.5. So you could see the 1.5 here, and then the 2.5 here and here. And changing the orientation of this made it totally different than this look and this look. This one has like an X in the middle. So you can play with these however you want. They're a lot of fun. You can change the orientation of it, change the size of it, and you can get a totally different look every time you do it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful. And I hope you make yourself a hidden wells because they're a lot of fun and it's a great look too. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when my next video comes out. And as I always say, happy sewing and sew something happy.